Welcome to a journey into the deep, where darkness wraps around every living thing like a velvet blanket, and creatures exist that seem borrowed from dreams. Let's begin our descent, slowly, gently, into a world where sunlight has never reached. Deep in the ocean, far below where light can penetrate, there lives a creature with a name that sounds frightening, but whose life is remarkably peaceful. The vampire squid, despite its dramatic name, lives in waters so depleted of oxygen that most creatures would perish within moments. These waters, nearly void of the oxygen we consider essential for life, are home to this gentle drifter. The vampire squid has adapted, over millions of years, with specialized blood that can extract and hold onto every precious molecule of oxygen. Its metabolism, slow, deliberate, barely ticking over, allows it to survive where others cannot. Imagine floating, in that quiet darkness, your body perfectly tuned to the stillness, needing almost nothing, existing in a state of perpetual calm. And despite its name, the vampire squid does not hunt for blood. Instead, it feeds on something far more poetic, something called marine snow. These are tiny particles, bits of organic matter, that drift down through the water column like an endless, gentle snowfall in the deep. The vampire squid, with its delicate arms, collects these drifting fragments, eating the remnants of life from the sunlit world above. And when threatened, this remarkable creature has a defense unlike any other. It can turn itself inside out, pulling its webbed arms up and over its body, displaying what looks like spiky tissue, transforming itself into something that appears far more dangerous than it really is. But this is rarely needed, in the quiet depths, where encounters are few, and stillness is the natural state of things. Going deeper still, past 6,900 meters, more than 22,000 feet below the surface, we find the deepest living octopuses known to science. These are the Dumbo octopuses, named for the ear-like fins that extend from the sides of their bodies. 6,900 meters, that's deeper than Mount Denali is tall. It's a depth where pressure is immense, where the weight of the entire ocean presses down, and yet these small octopuses make their home there, in the deepest places, in the profound darkness. The Dumbo octopuses move through their dark world, not by jetting or crawling, but by flying. They flap their ear-like fins, gently, rhythmically, moving through the water with the grace of slow-motion birds. Total darkness surrounds them, and yet they fly through it, navigating by senses we can only begin to imagine. There is something deeply peaceful about this image, a small creature, flapping softly, gliding through an eternal night, unbothered by the absence of light, perfectly at home in the deep. Among the strangest residents of the deep ocean is a fish whose appearance matches the harshness of its world. The fangtooth fish carries teeth so large, so disproportionate to its body, that they rank among the largest teeth relative to body size of any creature in the sea. These teeth, needle-sharp and pointing forward, give the fangtooth its name and its fearsome appearance. But this is simply adaptation. A body shaped by the scarcity of the deep, where every opportunity to feed must be seized, where a mouthful of formidable teeth means survival. The fangtooth's teeth are so large, so prominent, that it cannot fully close its mouth. Its jaws remain permanently apart, those impressive fangs always visible, always ready. These fish have been found as deep as 5,000 meters, swimming slowly through the crushing darkness, mouths agape, patient hunters in a world where patience is essential. In the same dark waters, drifts a fish that seems to belong in a science fiction story. The barrel-eye fish has a head unlike any other. Its head is transparent, a clear dome, and through this living window, you can see its tubular eyes pointing upward toward the faint light filtering from above. These eyes, green and cylindrical, rotate within the transparent dome, allowing the barrel-eye to look up and spot the silhouettes of prey against the dim ceiling of its world. It's a design so unusual, so perfectly suited to its environment, that it seems almost unreal. Imagine drifting, in the twilight zone of the ocean, looking up through your transparent skull, watching for shadows against the fading light. On the seafloor below, another remarkable fish has chosen a different strategy entirely. The tripod fish, rather than swimming constantly, has evolved 3 elongated fin rays, fin and stilt-like, that it uses to perch motionless on the bottom. There it stands, raised slightly above the sediment, perfectly still, facing into the current, sensing with its lateral lines, feeling for the vibrations of prey drifting in the water above. It waits, conserving every bit of energy, a patient sentinel in the darkness. Some creatures of the deep have lost faculties we consider essential. Deep-sea lobsters, over countless generations, have lost their functional eyes entirely. In the absolute darkness where they live, eyes serve no purpose, and so evolution has taken them away. Instead, these blind lobsters navigate their world through touch and chemical sensing, with hypersensitive antennae and claws that can detect the faintest disturbances in the water. They move slowly, deliberately, across the seafloor, feeling their way through the darkness, finding everything they need without ever seeing. And perhaps strangest of all, are the faceless cusk eels. These fish appear, at first glance, to have no face at all. No visible eyes, no obvious mouth where you'd expect to find one. Their eyes are hidden beneath skin, vestigial perhaps, or simply tucked away where they cannot be damaged. And their mouths, open on the underside of their heads, out of sight. Faceless, drifting through the deep, they remind us that in the ocean's depths, conventional forms give way to designs we can barely imagine. Bodies shaped by pressure, by darkness, by the strange requirements of life in the deep. 10 creatures, 10 glimpses into the deep ocean, where life takes forms that challenge everything we expect. Rest now, and let your mind drift into those quiet depths, where strange and beautiful things exist in the darkness, perfectly adapted, perfectly at peace. We continue our journey now, drifting deeper, into zones where the weight of the ocean above becomes almost unimaginable, where life adapts in ways that seem to defy the very laws of biology. Let us explore how creatures transform themselves, shedding what is unnecessary, keeping only what allows them to endure. In the deepest zones of the ocean, where every bit of energy is precious, some fish have made a remarkable choice. They have let go of their pigmentation, allowed their colors to fade, until they appear pale, almost ghostly, drifting through the darkness like living shadows. Color requires energy to produce and maintain, and in a place where no light exists to see it, color serves no purpose. And so these fish have become pale, translucent even, their bodies streamlined not just in shape, but in the very chemistry of their existence. They are creatures reduced to essentials, elegant in their simplicity, floating through the deep like wisps of smoke. There is something hauntingly beautiful about this, the way life strips away everything unnecessary, leaving only what is needed to survive. The challenge of living under pressure, immense pressure, that would crush most life forms, has led to another elegant solution. Some deep-sea fish have evolved bodies that are soft, jelly-like, almost boneless in their consistency. These fish have no swim bladders, no rigid structures, no air spaces that would collapse under the crushing weight above them. Instead, their bodies are made of tissue with the same density as the surrounding water, allowing the pressure to pass through them, around them, without causing damage. They drift, gelatinous and strange, perfectly matched to their environment, neither resisting the pressure nor suffering from it, simply existing within it, as naturally as we exist in air. In the frigid waters of the Antarctic, where temperatures hover just above freezing year-round, lives a fish that has taken adaptation to an extreme. The Antarctic icefish has no red blood cells. None at all. Their blood flows clear, or perhaps the palest yellow, completely lacking the hemoglobin that gives blood its red color and carries oxygen through the bodies of almost every vertebrate on Earth. And yet, these fish survive. They thrive. The cold water they live in holds more dissolved oxygen than warmer seas, and their hearts are large, pumping that oxygen-rich but hemoglobin-free blood throughout their bodies with remarkable efficiency. It's a solution so unusual, so counterintuitive, that it reminds us how many different paths life can take. Imagine blood flowing through you like water, clear and cold, carrying everything you need without the machinery we consider essential. Other creatures in the deep cold have developed their own defenses against freezing. Certain deep-sea amphipods, small crustaceans that scuttle along the ocean floor, produce antifreeze-like chemicals within their bodies. These biological antifreezes circulate through their systems, preventing ice crystals from forming in their tissues even when the water around them drops to temperatures that would freeze most living things solid. They move through the near-freezing darkness, protected by their own internal chemistry, tiny survivors in an impossibly cold world. In the very deepest trenches, the Mariana, the Tonga, the Philippine trenches, where pressure reaches levels that would instantly crush human submarines, fish have evolved yet another microscopic marvel. They build their cell membranes, the thin barriers that hold each cell together, from special fats. These fats remain flexible, pliable, even under pressures that would turn normal fats rigid and useless. Every cell in their bodies, billions of them, wrapped in membranes specifically designed to withstand the crush of the deep. Its adaptation at the molecular level, life engineering itself atom by atom, to survive where survival seems impossible. The deep ocean, with its scarce food and low temperatures, has given rise to creatures that live life in extreme slow motion. Some deep-sea sharks and fish have metabolisms so slow, so extraordinarily reduced, that they may live for centuries. Their hearts beat slowly, their cells divide rarely, their growth inches forward year by year by year. A Greenland shark might live for 400 years or more, moving through the Arctic depths with ancient patience, older than nations, swimming through centuries as we move through decades. There is something profound in this, the idea of a fish that might have been born when Galileo was alive, still swimming, still hunting, still existing in the cold and dark. Among these ancient survivors is the frilled shark, a creature that looks as though it swam directly out of prehistory. And in a sense, it has. The frilled shark is considered a living fossil, its body plan and jaw design virtually unchanged for millions upon millions of years. It has the appearance of something not quite modern, something that evolution sketched out early and then decided needed no revision. Long and eel-like, with frilled gills that give it its name, it swims through the deep waters as its ancestors did in ancient seas, a messenger from the distant past. The frilled shark's mouth is a marvel of predatory design refined over eons. Inside that ancient jaw are approximately 300 teeth, each one backward-facing, each one shaped like a tiny trident with 3 points. These teeth are arranged in 25 rows, creating a mouth that is less a set of jaws and more a trap from which escape is nearly impossible. When prey is caught, those backward-facing teeth ensure it can only move in one direction, deeper into the shark's throat. It's a design perfected long before the dinosaurs walked the earth, and it still works flawlessly today in the deep ocean darkness. Another bizarre shark prowls the deep with adaptations all its own. The goblin shark, with its distinctive protruding snout and disturbing jaws, seems like something conjured from nightmares rather than evolution. Its jaws can extend forward like a slingshot, shooting out from its head to snatch prey, then retracting back into place. And its skin is semi-transparent, revealing the pink tissue beneath, giving it a fleshy, unfinished appearance. The goblin shark looks like a creature caught halfway through creation, strange and unsettling, perfectly suited to a world humans rarely see. But perhaps no deep-sea predator demonstrates the drive to survive quite like the black swallower. This fish, modest in size, can engulf prey up to 10 times its own weight. Its stomach is expandable, stretching like a balloon to accommodate meals that seem impossibly large. A black swallower might catch a fish far bigger than itself, and through sheer determination and a stomach that defies normal anatomy, it will swallow that fish whole. Sometimes these meals are so large the swallower cannot fully digest them before gases from decomposition bring the fish floating to the surface, a testament to the extreme hunger and opportunism required to survive in the food-poor depths. In the deep ocean, waste is a luxury no creature can afford, and so evolution has created stomachs that stretch, jaws that unhinge, mouths that open impossibly wide, all to ensure that when food appears rare and precious, not a single opportunity is missed. 10 more glimpses into the realm of adaptation and survival, where life bends the rules we think are fixed, where creatures live for centuries, swim with clear blood, and swallow prey that dwarfs them. Rest now, breathe slowly, and drift in the knowledge that life finds a way, even in the deepest darkness, even under the greatest pressure, life endures. We descend further now, into a realm of eels with jaws that defy proportion, and creatures whose very bodies seem designed by imagination rather than evolution. Let the darkness embrace you, as we explore forms that stretch and glow, that drift and hunt, in ways that seem impossibly strange. In the deep ocean lives an eel with a jaw that transforms it into something almost unrecognizable. The gulper eel possesses a mouth that is enormous, a pouch-like jaw that can balloon outward, expanding until it is larger than the eel's entire body. Imagine a creature that is mostly mouth, its jaw opening like a net, like a living trap that engulfs everything in its path. The gulper eel drifts through the darkness, and when prey appears rare and precious, that jaw balloons open, surrounding its meal, swallowing it whole into the expandable stomach beyond. It is an eel that has sacrificed almost everything to its hunger, its body thin and tapered, almost an afterthought to that magnificent, terrible jaw. Among the gulper eels, one species has added a touch of luminescence to its design. The whiptail gulper eel tapers at its end into a long, thread-like tail, and at the very tip of that tail, it glows. This tiny point of light, hanging in the absolute darkness, may act as a lure. Small fish and crustaceans, drawn to this mysterious beacon, swim closer to investigate, and find themselves facing that enormous balloon-like jaw. The eel need not chase its prey, it simply waits, its glowing tail tip doing the work of attracting meals from the darkness. There is something almost patient about this strategy, the way the eel hangs motionless, its tail light glowing softly, waiting for curiosity to bring food within reach. A close relative, the pelican eel, has refined this strategy even further. It too possesses loosely hinged jaws that can open to swallow prey much larger than seems possible, and it too uses light as a tool. The pelican eel has a glowing organ at the tip of its tail, a small lantern in the dark, drawing prey close with its soft illumination. Those jaws, barely connected, can unhinge completely, allowing the eel to engulf fish that dwarf its slender body. In the deep ocean, where meals are rare, the ability to eat anything you encounter, regardless of size, becomes a tremendous advantage. Not all deep-sea eels have abandoned their teeth for expandable jaws. The snipe eel has taken a different path entirely. Its mouth is long and beak-like, almost bird-like in appearance, and lined with teeth that point outward rather than inward. These strange jaws work like a comb, sweeping through the water, the outward-pointing teeth catching and straining tiny organisms from the current. The snipe eel feeds on plankton and small crustaceans, combing them from the water column with its peculiar beak, a filter feeder with the body of a predator. It is yet another solution to the problem of finding food in the deep, where different strategies lead to wildly different body forms. Moving from eels to cephalopods, we encounter a creature of almost mythical proportions. The colossal squid, one of the largest invertebrates on Earth, possesses eyes that are the largest in the entire animal kingdom. Each eye is the size of a dinner plate. Some measure nearly a foot across. These enormous eyes, perfectly adapted to gathering every photon of light in the near-total darkness, can detect the silhouettes of prey or the bioluminescent glow of other creatures from remarkable distances. Imagine eyes that large, staring into the abyss, seeing things we can only dream of, in a darkness so complete that even with eyes the size of plates, vision is a challenge. The colossal squid is not alone in the strange world of deep-sea cephalopods. The bigfin squid is perhaps even more bizarre in its proportions. This squid trails arms behind it, thread-like filaments, so long they defy belief. These arms may reach 20 times the length of the squid's body, trailing behind it like gossamer threads, like fishing lines dangling in the current. The bigfin squid drifts through the deep with these impossibly long arms extended, waiting for something, anything, to brush against them. When prey makes contact with those thread-like arms, the squid can sense it and draw its catch slowly upward toward its waiting beak. It is fishing, in the most literal sense, casting lines into the darkness and waiting for a bite. The bigfin squid is so rare, so seldom encountered, that it remains one of the ocean's great mysteries. These creatures have been observed deeper than 6,000 meters, nearly 4 miles down, in some of the most remote and inaccessible parts of the ocean. They are known from only a few sightings, most captured by deep-sea cameras or remotely operated vehicles. Each sighting reveals a creature drifting motionless, arms trailing downward like roots hanging in water, almost plant-like in its stillness. We know so little about how they live, how they reproduce, how they grow those incredible arms. They exist at the very edge of our knowledge, creatures we have barely begun to understand. Among the longest creatures in the ocean are not whales or giant squid, but something far more delicate. Giant siphonophores form colonial chains that can stretch over 40 meters long, longer than a blue whale, longer than most buildings are tall. But these are not single creatures. They are colonies, made up of thousands of specialized individuals, each one performing a different function. Some individuals are responsible for movement, pulsing in rhythm to pull the colony through the water. Others are dedicated to feeding, trailing stinging tentacles that capture prey. Still others exist only to reproduce. Together, they form a single entity, a living chain that drifts through the mid-water, glowing softly, one of the longest animals on Earth, yet built from thousands of tiny lives working in perfect coordination. In the same waters, float creatures of delicate beauty. Sea angels are shell-less sea slugs, translucent and ethereal, their bodies shaped like tiny angels with gossamer wings. But they are predators. They hunt using sticky tentacles, capturing their prey, often other small swimming snails, and consuming them with surprising efficiency. They fly through the water, those wing-like appendages beating slowly, gracefully, carrying them through the dark in search of their next meal. Despite their predatory nature, there is something enchanting about their appearance, the way they move like dancers, like tiny ghosts swimming through an endless night. And then there are the sea sapphires, tiny copepods that flash with colors so brilliant they seem lit from within. Their bodies contain crystal plates, layers of microscopic structures in their skin that reflect and refract light. As they move, as the angle of light changes, they flash metallic blues and greens, sapphires and emeralds appearing and disappearing in an instant. In some lights they are invisible, transparent, but turn them just slightly, and they explode with color, like living jewels scattered through the water. These tiny creatures, barely visible to the naked eye, carry within them some of the most intense colors in the ocean, brief flashes of brilliance in the deep blue twilight. 10 more wonders, from eels with jaws like balloons, to squid with arms like threads, to colonies longer than whales, and jewels that swim through the darkness flashing blue and green. Let your mind drift among them, floating through these strange forms, these patient hunters and delicate drifters, all perfectly suited to their world of darkness and pressure, all beautiful in their strangeness. Rest now, and let the deep ocean cradle your thoughts, gently, softly, into sleep. We enter now a realm of light and invisibility, where creatures have learned to manipulate the faintest glow, to bend it, reflect it, or disappear into it completely. In the twilight zone of the ocean, where darkness is not yet absolute, the game of predator and prey becomes a game of optics, of physics, of light itself. Let us drift through this dim world, and discover how life has learned to see the invisible, and become invisible in turn. In the deep, where light is precious and rare, some creatures have evolved eyes that work like mirrors. The mirror-eyed ostracods, tiny crustaceans drifting through the twilight waters, have developed reflective layers within their eyes. These mirrors, biological and precise, channel and concentrate the faintest traces of light. Photons that would otherwise scatter uselessly are captured, redirected, focused onto light-sensitive cells. It is vision enhanced by reflection. The way a telescope gathers starlight, these tiny creatures gather the dim glow of the deep ocean. They see what should be invisible, perceiving shapes and movements in a world most would consider blind darkness. The ostracods are not alone in their mirror eyes. Some deep-sea copepods, even smaller drifting crustaceans, have evolved mirror-like crystals within their eyes for enhanced night vision. These microscopic mirrors, arranged with stunning precision, give these tiny animals vision far beyond what their size would suggest possible. In the deep ocean, where being seen means being eaten, and seeing first means survival, evolution has crafted eyes of remarkable sophistication in creatures smaller than a grain of rice. Other creatures have taken a different approach to vision in the deep. Some deep-sea shrimp and fish have evolved eyes that are tuned, specifically and exclusively, to detect bioluminescent flashes. They cannot see in any traditional sense. Sunlight means nothing to them, reflected light is invisible, but the brief flicker of another creature's bioluminescence, that they can see with perfect clarity. Their eyes have become specialized sensors, detectors of living light, ignoring everything else in favor of seeing the one thing that matters, the glow of prey, or predators, in the darkness. In the twilight zone, where faint light still filters down from above, silhouettes become the great danger. Any creature caught between a predator and the dim light above becomes a dark shape, a target, instantly visible. But the hatchetfish has solved this problem with elegant precision. Its sides are mirror-like, reflective surfaces that match the color and intensity of the water around it. And along its belly, it has adjustable light organs, bioluminescent spots that glow with exactly the right brightness to match the faint light filtering from above. The hatchetfish essentially erases its own silhouette. From below, a predator sees not a dark fish shape, but a belly glowing with the same light as the background. The hatchetfish becomes invisible, not through transparency, but through mimicry of light itself. This strategy, called counterillumination, is used by many creatures of the twilight zone. They glow from below, matching their light output to the faint glow from above, blending seamlessly into the background brightness. It requires constant adjustment. As they rise or sink, as the ambient light changes, these creatures must brighten or dim their belly lights to maintain the illusion. It is active camouflage, requiring awareness and control, a constant performance of light, maintained throughout every moment of their lives. Some creatures have chosen transparency as their defense. The glass squid, and several other midwater species, have bodies so clear that light passes straight through them. They are nearly invisible. Their internal organs are carefully arranged, their tissues modified to avoid scattering light, everything designed to let photons pass through as if the squid were made of water itself. To become transparent, these creatures have restructured their very biology, removing pigments, changing protein structures, becoming windows rather than walls. They drift through the twilight, present but unseen, ghosts in the water column. Other deep-sea crustaceans use what might be called mirror camouflage. Their bodies are covered in reflective surfaces, plates and scales that act like tiny mirrors, reflecting the surrounding light in all directions. These creatures don't absorb light, they bounce it back, matching the ambient glow of the deep. A predator looking at them sees not a solid object, but a shimmer, a distortion, something that might be a trick of the water rather than a living thing. In the dim light of the deep, this confusion, this moment of uncertainty, can be enough to survive. Among the predators of the twilight zone, the Dumbo dragonfish has developed a particularly clever adaptation. Its fangs, those tools of predation, are see-through, transparent. Most fangs would reflect light, would catch and scatter photons, alerting prey to the dragonfish's presence. But transparent fangs create no such warning. The dragonfish can drift close to its prey, its mouth open, its clear fangs invisible against the darkness, and strike before its victim realizes the danger. It is a weapon designed for stealth, for hunting in a world where any reflection, any glint of light, means failure. Some dragonfish have gone even further in their manipulation of light. Certain species emit bioluminescence that is infrared, a wavelength that most deep-sea creatures simply cannot see. It is light that exists beyond the visible spectrum for most of the ocean's inhabitants. The dragonfish illuminates its hunting ground with this invisible beam, seeing prey that remains unaware of being watched. It is like hunting with night vision goggles in a world where your prey has no knowledge that night vision exists. A private wavelength, a secret light, giving the dragonfish an almost unfair advantage in the eternal game of predator and prey. And then there is the stoplight loose jaw, a fish with perhaps the most remarkable bioluminescent trick of all. It produces red light. True red bioluminescence, extraordinarily rare in the ocean. Most bioluminescence is blue or green, wavelengths that travel well through water. Red light is quickly absorbed, which makes it seem like a poor choice. But that is precisely the point. The stoplight loose jaw uses red light as a private hunting beam, a spotlight that only it can see. Its prey, lacking the ability to perceive red wavelengths, remain unaware that they are being illuminated, being examined, being targeted by a beam of light they cannot detect. The stoplight loose jaw hunts with a flashlight invisible to everything but itself, scanning the darkness with red light, finding meals in what its prey believe is total darkness. 10 creatures that have mastered light, that bend it and reflect it, that produce it in wavelengths others cannot see, that erase themselves from view through transparency or carefully calibrated glowing. In the deep ocean, light becomes both weapon and shield, both signal and disguise, and evolution has explored every possible way to manipulate those rare and precious photons. Rest now, let these images of living light and perfect darkness drift through your mind, softly, gently, as you slip toward sleep. We continue our exploration of light in the darkness, moving now to creatures that use their glow not just to see or hide, but to communicate, to attract, to confuse, and to escape. The deep ocean is alive with signals, messages written in light, flashing and pulsing through the eternal night. Let us drift among these living lanterns and discover the many languages of bioluminescence. Perhaps no deep-sea creature is more iconic than the anglerfish, with its glowing lure dangling before its face like a tiny lantern in the darkness. This bioluminescent lure, filled with glowing bacteria, acts as bait, drawing curious prey close enough for the anglerfish's enormous jaws to snap shut. But the anglerfish has another remarkable adaptation, one that speaks to the desperate scarcity of the deep. Finding a mate in the vast darkness is nearly impossible, and so male anglerfish have evolved an extreme solution. When a tiny male finds a female, many times his size, he bites into her flesh and fuses with her permanently. His body merges with hers, his bloodstream connecting to her own, until he becomes little more than a parasitic appendage, providing sperm when needed, sustained by her body for the rest of his life. It is one of nature's strangest partnerships, born from the simple difficulty of finding another of your kind in the endless dark. In the same dark waters swim the lanternfish, Small silvery fish that migrate vertically each night in numbers so vast they create what sonar operators once mistook for the ocean floor. These fish are covered in light organs, photophores, arranged in patterns that are unique to each species. These light patterns act as glowing identification badges. In the darkness, a lanternfish can recognize its own kind by the specific arrangement of lights along their bodies. It is a visual language, species recognition through bioluminescent geometry, allowing them to school together, to find mates, to maintain their identity in a world where visual cues are rare and precious. Drifting through the same waters, jellyfish and comb jellies create displays of light that seem almost artistic. Some species produce moving curtains of light that ripple across their bodies, waves of bioluminescence flowing along their bells, cascading down their tentacles. These light shows can mesmerize, can confuse, can make the creature appear larger or more threatening than it is. The light moves constantly, creating the illusion of motion and complexity, turning a simple gelatinous body into a display of shifting luminescence. Some deep-sea jellies have learned to manipulate their light in more strategic ways. They can switch between steady glows and rapid pulses, changing their bioluminescent display depending on the threat they face. A steady glow might serve as a warning, a signal that the jelly is toxic or unpalatable. But when attacked, when grabbed by a predator, some jellies switch to rapid flashing, a strobe effect that can startle, disorient, or even attract larger predators to the scene, predators that might attack the jelly's attacker. It is light used as both shield and alarm, a distress signal broadcast in pulses of blue-green fire. Among the comb jellies, one species has taken camouflage in an unexpected direction. The bloody-belly comb jelly glows red, a color that seems conspicuous, that seems like it would make the creature highly visible. But in the deep ocean, where the ambient light is blue, red becomes invisible. Most deep-sea animals cannot even perceive red wavelengths. So the bloody-belly comb jelly, glowing red from within, actually becomes harder to see. Its stomach, filled with bioluminescent prey, would normally glow blue and give away the jelly's position. But by glowing red, it masks that telltale blue light, camouflaging its last meal, hiding in plain sight through an unexpected choice of color. When escape is necessary, some creatures use bioluminescence as a weapon of confusion. Certain deep-sea shrimp, when threatened, eject glowing fluid from their mouths. It is like bioluminescent vomit, a cloud of light that hangs in the water. The predator, confronted suddenly with this glowing cloud, may snap at it while the shrimp jets away into the darkness. It is a decoy made of light, a false target that buys precious seconds of escape time. The shrimp sacrifices a bit of its glowing chemical reserves, but saves its life. Small copepods use a similar strategy, releasing glowing clouds as light smoke screens. These tiny crustaceans, when grabbed or disturbed, release bioluminescent chemicals that create a luminous cloud in the water. The cloud hangs there, glowing, while the copepod flees. It is misdirection at its simplest. Leave something bright behind you, and escape into the darkness while your attacker focuses on the light. It works because in the deep ocean, light draws attention automatically, inevitably, and anything that glows becomes the center of focus. Some creatures take the decoy strategy even further. Certain brittle stars, those delicate relatives of starfish, can shed their arms when grabbed by predators. And these arms continue to glow after being detached. The brittle star escapes on its remaining arms while the severed limb writhes and glows, holding the predator's attention. The arm will eventually regenerate, but in the moment of attack, it is an acceptable sacrifice. A glowing decoy, wriggling with apparent life, while the real animal disappears into the surrounding darkness. Sea cucumbers, those soft-bodied bottom dwellers, have developed their own version of this strategy. Some species can eject glowing body parts, sticky luminous tubes from their rear ends, that attach to predators and continue glowing. The predator finds itself marked with light, suddenly visible, suddenly the brightest thing in the area. It may flee to avoid attracting larger predators, and while it struggles with the glowing sticky mass, the sea cucumber makes its slow but determined escape. It is sacrifice and strategy combined, using light as both marker and distraction. Among the most spectacular bioluminescent creatures are the pyrosymps, deep pelagic tunicates that form massive colonies shaped like hollow tubes. These colonies can be several meters long, sometimes much longer, giant glowing cylinders drifting through the midwater. Each pyrosym is a colony of thousands of individual organisms, each one a tiny tunicate, working together to create a structure that can glow with coordinated light. When disturbed, the entire colony can light up, a tube of brilliant blue-green light floating in the darkness. Divers who encounter them describe them as underwater lightsabers, or glowing subway cars, massive and otherworldly, pulsing with synchronized bioluminescence. They are among the most beautiful expressions of collective bioluminescence in the ocean, thousands of small lights becoming one enormous beacon in the deep. 10 more creatures of light, from anglerfish with fused mates and glowing lures, to jellies that flash and strobe, to animals that eject glowing decoys and clouds. The deep ocean speaks in light, in patterns and pulses, in steady glows and sudden flashes. Each spark carries meaning, attraction, warning, confusion, or escape. Rest now, and let these images of living light drift through your consciousness, glowing softly, fading gently, as you sink deeper into rest, into darkness, into peace. We drift now into stranger territories, among creatures whose bodies and behaviors challenge our understanding of what it means to be an animal. Here are hunters that turn themselves inside out, jellies that move like breathing lungs, and partnerships formed in the darkness between unlikely companions. Let us float gently through this realm, where the familiar rules of biology bend, and sometimes break entirely. In the mid-water, hanging suspended between surface and seafloor, drift creatures that look like translucent barrels. These are deep-sea tunicates, solitary drifters that filter feed on an impressive scale. Their bodies are clear, allowing you to see through them to the water beyond, and they hang motionless, drawing enormous volumes of water through their barrel-shaped bodies. The water enters through one opening, passes through a fine mucus net that captures tiny particles, and exits through another. Hour after hour, day after day, they filter, extracting microscopic meals from the passing current. They are living filters, patient and efficient, requiring almost no energy to maintain their slow harvest of the sea. Some tunicates have evolved into active predators, and their hunting method is remarkably strange. These carnivorous tunicates wait with their bodies open, like living traps, and when small prey swims inside, they snap shut. The prey is trapped, digested, and consumed. But here is where things become truly bizarre. After feeding, these tunicates can reabsorb their own brains. The brain, no longer needed until the next feeding cycle, is broken down and recycled. Later, when it's time to hunt again, the tunicate will regrow its brain from scratch. It is an economy of survival taken to an extreme. Even the brain is negotiable, even consciousness itself can be temporarily abandoned to save energy. Deep-sea worms have evolved hunting strategies that seem almost alien in their execution. Some species hunt by turning their throats inside out, everting them like spiked socks pulled suddenly outward. The throat, lined with hooks and teeth, shoots out of the worm's mouth, grabbing prey and pulling it back into the body to be digested. It happens quickly, a sudden explosion of tissue, and then the throat retracts, pulling the captured meal inward. The worm's body is its weapon, turned outside in, and then back again. Certain polychaete worms use a similar strategy, but with a kind of terrible beauty. They evert their hooked pharynxes, turning them inside out like flowers blooming in fast motion. What emerges is a crown of hooks, a spiral of grabbing tissue, unfurling from the worm's head. These hooks snag prey, wrap around it, and then the entire structure retracts, pulling the meal down into the worm's digestive system. It is predation as transformation, the body reorganizing itself in an instant, from tube to flower to tube again. Ribbon worms take a different approach to hunting, using their bodies as elastic weapons. Some species can stretch themselves many times their original length, extending across surprising distances to ambush prey. A ribbon worm at rest might be a few inches long, but when hunting, it can stretch to several feet, reaching out across the seafloor or through the water column. The body extends, wraps around prey, and then contracts, drawing the captured animal back to the worm's mouth. It is hunting through elasticity, through the simple ability to reach farther than anyone expects. In the deep ocean, partnerships sometimes form between unlikely neighbors. Certain deep-sea anemones host small crustaceans within their tentacles, providing the crustaceans with shelter and protection. In exchange, the crustaceans share food scraps, dropping bits of their meals which the anemone consumes. It is a relationship built on mutual benefit. The crustacean gains a fortified home, the anemone gains supplemental nutrition. In the food-poor deep, even scraps are valuable, and cooperation becomes a viable strategy for survival. Some anemones have taken an even more creative approach to finding food. Rather than anchoring themselves to rocks or the seafloor, they attach to drifting debris. Bits of wood, fragments of plastic, anything that floats becomes an anchoring point. The anemone transforms this trash into a mobile hunting platform, drifting through the mid-water on its improvised raft, trailing tentacles into the current, catching whatever passes by. It is opportunism at its finest, turning garbage into opportunity, using human waste as transportation through the deep. In the deep ocean, where energy is scarce, movement becomes expensive. Some deep-sea jellies have adapted by pulsing extremely slowly, conserving every possible bit of energy. Their bells contract perhaps once every several seconds, or even less frequently. They drift more than they swim, sinking slowly between pulses, rising slightly with each languid contraction. It is movement in slow motion, life at a reduced tempo, existing at the minimum pace necessary to survive. Among the largest of these slow-moving jellies are the giant phantom jellies, ethereal creatures with bells that can reach up to 1 meter wide. Their arms hang down like curtains, long ribbons of tissue trailing beneath the bell, creating a living net that captures prey. These jellies drift through the deep like ghosts, hence their name, their translucent bodies barely visible even when you're looking directly at them. Those curtain-like arms sway gently as the jelly pulses, sweeping through the water, stinging and catching small creatures that drift into their path. They are patient hunters, operating on the assumption that in the deep ocean, if you wait long enough, food will eventually come to you. Perhaps the strangest jellyfish form belongs to the Deepsteria, a genus that has abandoned the traditional bell shape for something far more unusual. Deepsteria jellyfish form huge bag-like bells, their bodies shaped like living sacs, that fold and wrinkle when contracting. When the jelly pulses, the bag compresses, creating folds and creases across its surface. When it relaxes, the bag expands again, smoothing out. The entire structure is thin, sheet-like, more like a floating plastic bag than a traditional jellyfish. Sometimes small crustaceans or fish become trapped inside the bell, swimming in the enclosed space, unable to escape through the semi-closed opening. The Deepsteria drifts along, its strange bag-like body pulsing slowly, occasionally trapping prey through accident or design, a creature so unusual it barely seems real, yet perfectly adapted to its world of deep water and scarce resources. 10 more glimpses into the strange, into worms that bloom and stretch, tunicates that reabsorb their brains, jellies shaped like bags and ghosts. The deep ocean is a place where conventional body forms give way to innovation, where energy conservation drives behavior to extremes, where partnerships form in unexpected places. Rest now, Let these images drift through your mind like jellies through dark water, slowly, softly, folding and unfolding, as you sink deeper into rest, deeper into peace, deeper into sleep. We continue our descent through the deep, encountering now creatures that defy their own categories, sea cucumbers that swim like jellyfish, sponges that hunt like predators, and worms that consume the bones of giants. The deep ocean is full of such transformations, where creatures evolve beyond their traditional forms, finding new ways to exist, new strategies for survival. Let us drift among them, slowly, peacefully, and witness these remarkable adaptations. Sea cucumbers, those soft-bodied creatures we typically imagine crawling along the seafloor, have in some species taken to the open water. The jellyfish sea cucumber hovers mid-water, suspended between bottom and surface, using umbrella-like fins that extend from its body. These fins beat gently, creating lift, allowing the sea cucumber to float and swim in a way that seems to contradict everything we expect from these animals. It has freed itself from the seafloor, drifting through the water column like something entirely different, a sea cucumber that learned to fly. There is something almost joyful in this image, a creature escaping the bounds of what its relatives do, finding freedom in the midwater. Among the most visually striking of the swimming sea cucumbers is the pink see-through fantasia. Its name describes it perfectly. The body is transparent, translucent pink, and through its clear skin you can see everything inside. Its digestive system, visible as a dark coil within the pink body, its other internal organs, all on display. It is anatomy without secrets, a creature that hides nothing, floating through the deep with all its inner workings revealed. There is an honesty to this transparency, a vulnerability, and yet it survives, drifting through the darkness, utterly exposed and utterly unbothered. Some sea cucumbers have developed the ability to transform themselves for brief escapes. When threatened, certain species can inflate their bodies like balloons, filling themselves with water, and then swim off the seafloor using undulating motions. The normally bottom-bound creature becomes temporarily buoyant, swimming awkwardly but effectively away from danger. It is an emergency measure, a last resort, but it works. The sea cucumber inflates, swims, and when the danger passes, deflates again and settles back to the bottom, resuming its usual slow crawl across the sediment. On that same seafloor, brittle stars, those delicate relatives of sea stars with their long whip-like arms, have learned to harvest food from the water above. At night, deep brittle stars climb, pulling themselves up onto rocks or coral, elevating their bodies into the current. There they extend their arms upward, like living antennae, letting the current wash over them, catching particles and small organisms from the passing water. By day they retreat, curling back down to the safety of crevices, but at night they climb and feed, harvesting the darkness. Some brittle stars have taken this strategy even further, forming what can only be described as living flowers. Multiple brittle stars will gather together, their central bodies clustered on a rock or piece of debris, their arms extended upward and outward in all directions. Together they create a formation that looks like a blooming flower, dozens of arms radiating outward, creating a larger trap for drifting food. It is cooperation through geometry, each brittle star contributing its arms to the collective net, and each benefiting from the increased surface area of the group. In the same deep waters, another relative of sea stars has taken an unusual approach to feeding. The Holopus crinoid hangs upside down from rocks and ledges, its arms extended downward into the current. These arms, feather-like and delicate, close around food particles like fists, gripping them, drawing them toward the central mouth. The crinoid hangs there, inverted, patiently catching whatever the current brings, a creature that has chosen to view the world from an upside-down perspective, and thrives in that orientation. Perhaps most surprising of all the deep-sea filter feeders are the sponges that have become predators. The harp sponge, living at depths around 3 kilometers, has evolved to snag prey with Velcro-like hooks. It is shaped like a candelabra or a small harp, with upright branches covered in hooked structures. Small crustaceans that brush against these branches become entangled, stuck on the hooks, and the sponge slowly envelops and digests them. A sponge, traditionally the most passive of filter feeders, has become a hunter. It is evolution exploring every possibility, even turning the most unlikely creatures into predators. Other deep-sea sponges have built structures of remarkable beauty and complexity. Glass sponges construct their skeletons from silica, the same material as glass, creating intricate lattices and towers that can be breathtakingly delicate. These silica skeletons, strong yet light, create three-dimensional structures on the seafloor. And these structures become homes. Entire communities of small animals, shrimp and brittle stars and worms and fish, take up residence within the glass sponge skeleton, living in the rooms and passages of this living architecture. The sponge provides the foundation, and dozens of other species benefit from the habitat it creates. Some deep-sea sponges have achieved something even more remarkable than architectural beauty. They have achieved extraordinary longevity. Certain species can live for thousands of years. A single sponge, anchored to a rock in the deep ocean, filtering water, growing imperceptibly slowly, might be older than recorded human history. Older than ancient Rome. Older than the pyramids. They exist in such slow motion, their metabolism so reduced, that centuries pass like seasons. They are among the longest-lived organisms on Earth, patient beyond human comprehension, existing in a state of near-timelessness. And when even these ancient creatures die, when whales die and sink to the seafloor, their bones become a resource. Zombie worms, small marine worms with a fitting name, specialize in consuming whale bones. These worms have no mouths, no digestive systems in the traditional sense. Instead, they have root-like structures that they bore into the bone, secreting acid that dissolves the mineral matrix and releases the fats and proteins trapped within. The worms absorb these nutrients through their roots, drawing sustenance from bones that might be decades or centuries old. They cover whale skeletons like strange red flowers, hundreds of them, each one slowly eating the bones from within, breaking down the last remains of the ocean's giants, returning those nutrients to the deep-sea ecosystem. It is recycling taken to an extreme, life feeding on the very bones of death, ensuring that nothing is wasted in the deep ocean's economy of scarcity. 10 more wonders, from sea cucumbers that swim and reveal their insides, to brittle stars that climb and cooperate, to sponges that hunt and live for millennia, to worms that dissolve bones with acid roots. The deep ocean transforms everything, turns passive into active, turns brief into eternal, turns the expected into the impossible. Rest now, let these images settle in your mind like sediment drifting to the seafloor, slowly, gently, layer upon layer, building toward sleep, toward rest, toward peace. We descend now to the very bottom, to the abyssal plains and the hydrothermal vents, where the ocean floor itself becomes a source of life, and where creatures have adapted to conditions that seem incompatible with existence. Here in the deepest places, where pressure is crushing and food is scarce, or where toxic chemicals pour from the earth itself, life has found ways not just to survive, but to thrive. Let us sink slowly to the bottom, and witness these extremophiles, these masters of the impossible. When a whale dies and sinks to the seafloor, its body becomes a temporary oasis in the desert of the deep. And among the first to arrive, in massive numbers, are deep-sea crabs. They swarm the whale full, hundreds or thousands of them, converging from the surrounding seafloor, forming massive feeding mobs that can cover the entire carcass. They tear at the flesh, fighting among themselves, consuming the soft tissue in a frenzy of feeding. The whale fall represents months or years of food, a windfall in a world of scarcity, and the crabs make the most of it. The same swarms occur at hydrothermal vents, where chemicals seeping from the earth support entire ecosystems. The crabs gather in dense crowds around the vents, living at the edge of lethal heat, feeding on bacteria and whatever else the vent community produces. As the whale carcass is stripped of soft tissue, more specialized feeders arrive. At abyssal depths, some animals have evolved to eat what others cannot. They specialize in consuming cartilage and ear bones, the dense, tough materials that remain after everything else has been eaten. These specialists have digestive systems adapted to break down these challenging materials, extracting nutrition from tissues that most creatures would find indigestible. It is niche specialization taken to an extreme, becoming so adapted to eating one specific thing that you become dependent on it, waiting for whale falls or other rare opportunities when your particular food becomes available. In the sediments of the abyssal plain, life exists in forms so small they are easily overlooked. Deep nematode worms, microscopic roundworms, dominate these sediments by sheer numbers. There may be millions of them per square meter, threading through the mud, consuming bacteria and organic particles. They are among the most abundant animals at these depths, and yet they go largely unseen, invisible to the casual observer, dominating through numbers rather than size. The abyssal floor, seemingly barren, is actually teeming with these microscopic worms, a hidden abundance in the deep. At hydrothermal vents, where toxic chemicals pour from the Earth's crust, some creatures have formed partnerships that allow them to thrive. Certain deep-sea snails and clams rely entirely on symbiotic bacteria for food. These bacteria, living within the animal's tissues, can process the toxic sulfide compounds that flow from the vents, converting them into usable energy. The snails and clams essentially farm these bacteria within their own bodies, providing them with sulfides and oxygen, and in return receiving all the nutrition they need. They have no need to hunt or filter feed, their internal gardens provide everything. The blood chemistry of these vent-dwelling snails has been radically altered to support this lifestyle. They have evolved blood that can transport toxic sulfides without being poisoned by them, blood that can deliver both sulfides to their bacterial partners and oxygen to their own tissues simultaneously. It is a delicate balance, managing substances that would kill most creatures, but at the vents, this adaptation is the key to survival. The snails essentially have blood designed for a toxic environment, carrying poison as if it were nutrients, because in their world, it is. Near the vents themselves, where water can reach temperatures that would boil at the surface, some fish have learned to survive by hiding in the cracks. Vent-dwelling tonguefish flatten themselves into narrow fissures, pressed against the rocks, where the water is slightly cooler. They venture out briefly to feed, then retreat to their shelters. It is life at the very edge of thermal tolerance, existing in gaps where the temperature drops just enough to be survivable, flattening their bodies to fit into spaces that offer protection from the lethal heat just inches away. Among the most heat-tolerant creatures on Earth are the Pompeii worms. These segmented worms build tubes at hydrothermal vents and can survive water temperatures over 80 degrees Celsius, hot enough to brew tea, hot enough to severely burn human skin in seconds. Their secret is a coat of bacteria, a living insulation layer that covers their backs. These bacteria form a fleece-like covering, providing thermal insulation and possibly even processing toxins. The worm wears this bacterial coat like a protective blanket, allowing it to survive in water hot enough to kill almost any other complex life form. It is a partnership between worm and bacteria, where the bacteria provide temperature protection, and the worm provides a home and access to nutrients. Not all vent creatures rely on their symbionts for heat protection. Wharf crabs, named for their remarkably hairy appearance, farm bacteria on their own bodies. Their chests are covered in dense hair-like bristles, and within this hair, bacteria grow in thick mats. The crabs wave their claws through vent fluids, encouraging bacterial growth, and then harvest the bacteria by scraping them off and eating them. They are farmers, tending their bacterial crops on their own bodies, using themselves as the field and the harvest simultaneously. It is agriculture at its most intimate, growing your food on your own chest, and eating it whenever you're hungry. Some vent creatures have incorporated metals into their very bodies for protection. Scale worms that live near vents reinforce their backs with metal-based iron sulfide plates. These plates, formed from minerals absorbed from the vent environment, create a kind of armor, protecting the worm from the harsh conditions and possibly from predators. The worm becomes partially metallic, incorporating minerals that would be toxic to most creatures, turning them into protective scales. It is life building itself from the strange chemistry of the vents, using what is available, no matter how unusual. Perhaps the most remarkable example of metal incorporation is the scalyfoot snail. This creature reinforces both its shell and its foot, the muscular organ it uses to move, with metal minerals including iron sulfides. Its shell becomes layered with metal compounds, making it incredibly tough, possibly the most durable shell of any snail. And even its foot, the soft tissue that contacts the rocks, is stiffened with metal scales. The scalyfoot snail is partially made of metal, a living organism incorporating minerals into its tissues in ways that blur the line between biology and geology. It lives only at hydrothermal vents, in a few locations in the Indian Ocean, one of the rarest and most unusual creatures in the deep sea. 10 more wonders from the deepest places, from crabs that swarm whale bones, to worms that dominate through numbers, to creatures that farm bacteria on their bodies and incorporate metal into their flesh. Life at the vents and in the abyss has solved problems we barely understand, has formed partnerships we are only beginning to discover, has adapted to conditions we consider uninhabitable. Rest now, let these images of life at the extremes drift through your thoughts, creatures surviving the impossible, thriving in the lethal, finding ways forward even in the harshest conditions. Let that resilience comfort you as you drift, softly, toward sleep. We drift now through transformations and extremes, exploring how life changes shape from youth to adulthood, how creatures adapt to feed on almost nothing, and how some have pushed the boundaries of depth itself, living deeper than we once thought possible. The deep ocean is a place of constant surprise, where the very deepest points hold life, and where creatures transform so dramatically they seem like entirely different species. Let us float gently through these revelations, these stories of change and adaptation. In the open ocean, the larvae of many deep-sea creatures look so radically different from their adult forms that scientists once classified them as separate species entirely. These planktonic larvae, drifting in the upper waters, bore no obvious resemblance to the adults they would become. Only through careful observation, through watching the transformation, did researchers realize that these strange transparent drifters would eventually metamorphose into the familiar deep-sea forms. It is a reminder of how much we still don't know, how easily we can misidentify creatures when we see only one stage of their lives. The ocean keeps secrets, even ones hiding in plain sight. Some of these larvae are more dramatic than others. Monster larval shrimp, as they're aptly named, wear elaborate spiked armor during their juvenile stage. They look like tiny warriors, their bodies covered in spines and projections that make them appear fierce and dangerous. But this is temporary. As they grow, they molt, shedding this armored exterior, and emerge looking like normal shrimp. The monster stage is just a phase, a brief period of dramatic appearance before settling into the more modest form of adulthood. It is transformation through subtraction, becoming less spectacular but more practical as they mature. Sexual dimorphism, the difference in appearance between males and females, reaches extreme levels in some deep-sea species. In whalefish, the males remain tiny, while females grow massive by comparison. The size difference is so dramatic that for years scientists thought they were looking at different species. The tiny males, sometimes a fraction of the female's size, were classified separately until genetic analysis revealed the truth. In the deep ocean, Where finding a mate is extraordinarily difficult, evolution has taken different strategies for each sex, with females investing in growth and egg production, and males remaining small, mobile, focused only on finding females in the vast darkness. Some deep-sea octopuses have found a way to speed up the normally slow development of their eggs. They lay their eggs on warm rocks near hydrothermal vents, where the elevated temperature accelerates the embryo's growth. In the cold deep ocean, development usually takes a long time, but by choosing these warm nurseries, octopus mothers can reduce the incubation period significantly. The mothers guard their eggs near the vents, sometimes for years, barely moving, barely eating, waiting for their offspring to hatch. It is devotion at its most extreme, sacrificing everything, but choosing a location that gives their young the best possible start. In the vast expanses between these oases of heat and abundance, most deep-sea creatures must make do with much less. Many deep-sea sharks and fish rely heavily on marine snow for food, those drifting particles that fall endlessly from the sunlit world above. They filter it from the water, or pick it from the seafloor, consuming fragments so small they barely qualify as food. But in the deep ocean, there is no luxury of being choosy. Marine snow is reliable, constant, and those who can survive on it have access to a food source that never completely disappears. Some species have become so specialized that they can eat particles smaller than a grain of sand. Their feeding structures, whether gills or modified mouthparts, can strain out and process the tiniest specks of organic matter. It is efficiency taken to a microscopic extreme, extracting nutrition from particles most creatures would never notice. These animals have become harvesters of dust, surviving on what others cannot even detect, living proof that in the deep ocean, nothing edible goes to waste. Where methane seeps from the seafloor, creating environments toxic to most life, some fish have evolved to tolerate these conditions. Deep-sea eelpouts live in and around methane seep environments, swimming through water laden with chemicals that would kill most fish. Their bodies have adapted, their blood chemistry altered, their tissues resistant to the toxic effects of methane and sulfides. They thrive where others cannot survive, finding refuge and food in these poison zones, turning toxicity into opportunity. In the darkness, where eyes provide limited information, some deep-sea fish have evolved other senses to extraordinary levels. Certain species have ultra-sensitive lateral lines, the sensory organs that detect movement and vibrations in the water. These lateral lines are so sensitive they can detect the movement of prey from considerable distances, feeling the faint pressure waves created by swimming or drifting organisms. In a way, they are feeling their surroundings, reading the water like we might read Braille, detecting presence and motion through touch rather than sight. It is navigation and hunting through pressure sense, through feeling the disturbances in the water that signal life. At the very deepest points of the ocean, in the Hadal trenches where pressure reaches levels that crush almost everything, scientists have found fish. The Mariana snailfish lives at depths around 8,000 meters, over 26,000 feet down, in the Mariana Trench and similar ultra-deep environments. These are the deepest living fish known to science. They are small, translucent, delicate-looking, and yet they survive where the pressure is over 800 times what we experience at sea level. Their bodies are specially adapted, with proteins and cell membranes that remain functional under crushing force, with bones that are thin and flexible rather than rigid. They represent the absolute limit of where fish can survive, the boundary between possible and impossible. In the cold, low-oxygen waters of the deep, some creatures achieve sizes that seem impossible. Giant sea spiders, relatives of the spiders on land but belonging to their own distinct group, can reach leg spans the size of dinner plates. These delicate-looking creatures, all legs and barely any body, stride across the seafloor on impossibly thin limbs. Their legs are so long because they use them to breathe, absorbing oxygen directly through the leg surface. In the cold water, where oxygen is more plentiful and with their slow metabolism, this strategy works. They move in slow motion, taking careful steps, creatures that seem too fragile to exist, yet perfectly suited to their cold, quiet world. 10 more glimpses into transformation and survival, from larvae that wear armor and look nothing like their parents, to fish that survive at the absolute limits of depth, to spiders that grow to improbable sizes in the cold and dark. The deep ocean is a place of extremes and changes, where creatures push every boundary, where life finds ways to exist even in the most unlikely places. Rest now, breathe slowly, and let your mind drift like marine snow, falling gently, endlessly, toward the sea floor of sleep, settling softly, into darkness, into peace. We approach the end of our journey now, our final descent into the deepest mysteries, where we encounter the last hunters, the rarest discoveries, and the vast unknown that still awaits us. The deep ocean holds secrets we have barely begun to uncover, creatures we have seen only once, places no human eye has ever witnessed. Let us drift through these final revelations, these reminders of how much remains hidden, how much waits to be discovered. In the open ocean, small sharks have developed a hunting strategy that seems almost surgical. Cookie-cutter sharks, named for the perfect circular wounds they leave behind, attach themselves to much larger animals and gouge out plugs of flesh. They use their specialized lips to create suction, holding themselves in place against whales, dolphins, large fish, even submarines. Then they bite down, their razor-sharp teeth arranged in a circle, and twist their bodies, removing a perfect cookie-shaped piece of tissue. The wound is clean, precise, and the cookie-cutter shark drifts away, leaving its much larger victim with a distinctive circular scar. It is parasitism through precision, taking just enough to survive, from creatures too large to fight back effectively. On the seafloor below, other predators have chosen patience over movement. Deep-sea lizardfish lie motionless on the bottom, perfectly still, sometimes partially buried in sediment, waiting for prey to pass within striking range. They can remain this way for hours, days even, conserving every bit of energy, their bodies perfectly camouflaged against the seafloor. When prey finally drifts close enough, the lizardfish explodes into motion, a sudden strike, and then returns to stillness. It is hunting by ambush, by infinite patience, by the willingness to wait as long as necessary for a single meal. Among the anglerfish, we find again the extreme sexual dimorphism of the deep. Johnson's abyssal sea devils, like other deep-sea anglerfish, have males that fuse permanently to females, becoming parasitic appendages. But each species has its own variation on this theme. The males of Johnson's sea devils seek out females in the darkness, bite onto their bodies, and gradually merge with them, their circulatory systems connecting, their tissues fusing. The male becomes entirely dependent, providing sperm when needed, receiving all nutrition from the female's bloodstream. It is a relationship of complete dependency, born from the near impossibility of finding a mate in the vast dark ocean. We have seen how many creatures use bioluminescence to confuse or repel predators, but some take the opposite approach. Certain deep-sea jellies and worms glow specifically to attract prey, using light as a lure rather than a warning. Their bioluminescence mimics the appearance of food, or creates curiosity in passing creatures. Small fish or crustaceans, drawn to investigate the light, find themselves within reach of tentacles or jaws. It is deception through illumination, using the very thing that usually signals danger, to instead signal opportunity, drawing prey close through their own curiosity. Some deep pelagic worms have developed bioluminescence into an art form. They display multicolored bioluminescent patterns, different sections of their bodies glowing in different hues, creating displays of surprising complexity. Blues and greens, sometimes reds, flash in sequences across their segmented bodies. We don't fully understand the purpose of these multicolored displays. They may serve to confuse, to communicate, to attract, or perhaps all of these things. What we do know is that in the deep darkness, these worms create light shows of remarkable beauty, color and pattern emerging from creatures that most humans will never see. As we explore the deep ocean, we continue to discover species known from only a single specimen. One individual, captured or photographed once, and never encountered again. These singular discoveries remind us of how vast and unexplored the deep ocean remains. Somewhere in those depths, populations of these creatures exist, but we have been lucky, or perhaps unlucky, to encounter them only once. Each specimen raises more questions than it answers. How common are they? Where exactly do they live? What do they eat? How do they reproduce? The deep ocean holds these answers, but has not yet shared them. The creatures we have explored tonight, these 100 strange and wonderful forms, have been shaped by their environment. Pressure, darkness, and scarcity have created some of the strangest bodies on Earth. Bodies that turn inside out, bodies that are mostly mouth, bodies reinforced with metal, bodies that glow and flash, bodies that live for centuries. The deep ocean is a forge of evolution, where extreme conditions create extreme adaptations, where life has been pushed to explore possibilities that would never arise in gentler environments. These creatures are strange because their world is strange, because normal solutions don't work in abnormal conditions. And we have barely begun to catalog them. Many deep-sea animals remain unnamed and undescribed. They exist in museum collections, preserved specimens waiting for scientists to study them, or they appear in photographs and videos from deep-sea expeditions, documented but not yet formally described and named. The process of describing species, of understanding their biology and ecology, takes time, and the deep ocean has provided us with more discoveries than we have scientists to study them. For every creature we have named, there may be dozens we have glimpsed but not yet understood, hundreds we have never seen at all. Vast areas of the deep ocean have never been directly observed by humans. We have better maps of the surface of Mars than we do of the ocean floor. Entire mountain ranges, canyons deeper than the Grand Canyon, vast plains of sediment, all lie unexplored and unseen. The creatures living in these unobserved regions remain unknown to us. We can guess at what might be there, extrapolate from what we found elsewhere, but we cannot know for certain. The deep ocean keeps its secrets well, revealing them only slowly, only when we make the effort to descend and look. And even then, we see only the tiniest fraction of what exists. And so we arrive at a simple truth. The deeper humans explore, the more alien deep-sea life becomes. Each new depth record, each expedition to previously unexplored regions, reveals creatures that challenge our understanding of what is possible. Fish living at depths we thought could support no vertebrate life. Worms surviving temperatures that should cook them instantly. Creatures incorporating metal into their bodies. Symbiotic relationships of stunning complexity. The deep ocean continues to surprise us, to show us that life is more adaptable, more creative, more persistent than we ever imagined. There are likely creatures in the deep ocean stranger than anything we have yet discovered. Forms of life we cannot yet imagine. Adaptations we have not yet dreamed of. The ocean is vast, deep, and full of darkness and wonder. And so we conclude our journey, 100 facts, 100 glimpses into a world that exists beneath us, hidden in depths most of us will never visit. These creatures, strange as they are our neighbors on this planet, fellow travelers through time, fellow survivors. They live in darkness, under crushing pressure, in cold and scarcity, and yet they persist. They have found ways to survive, to thrive, to create beauty and complexity in the most unlikely places. There is something profound in this, something that speaks to the resilience of life itself. As you drift now toward sleep, let these images accompany you. The vampire squid turning itself inside out. The Dumbo octopus flying through eternal night. The barrel-eye fish looking up through its transparent head. The giant phantom jellies pulsing slowly through the deep. The brittle stars climbing to feed in darkness. The glass sponges thousands of years old. The snailfish living at the very edge of possible depth. Let them remind you that life finds a way, even in the deepest darkness, even under the greatest pressure, even when resources are scarce and survival seems impossible. Life adapts, life persists, life continues. Rest now, breathe slowly, let the darkness embrace you as it embraces the deep-sea creatures. Let the pressure of the day lift away. Let scarcity become abundance as sleep approaches. Sink gently, deeper, deeper, into rest, into peace, into the quiet darkness where strange and beautiful dreams await. The deep ocean has shared its secrets with you tonight. Now it is time to rest, to drift, to let go, and to sleep peacefully, deeply, in the darkness that holds all these wonders.